I am very happy to introduce to you now Dr. Shantina Sorrells, and she will then invite her panel here. Shantina Sorrells is a Vanguard alum. She is an expert on human-centered design. I am inspired just thinking about how human-centered design could contribute to designing a crosswalk that keeps our children safe online. Dr. Sorrells has a very long list of accomplishments. Please go into Sketch and read her bio, but I don't want to take any more time. Please come. I'm going to give you this.
Good morning. Good morning. I know she already made you say good morning in 2 languages, so I won't do it again. But we'll get started with inviting my panel up. So Eddie, Sarah, Melanie, Katie, Noelle, and I believe Margarita way back there is joining us. So come on up here. Feel free to find a seat wherever's comfortable. And you know what, we're just going to do a little human-centered design up here. We're going to move this table. Who wants to help? Just move it out a little bit. Perfect. So we can kind of sit in a semicircle and face each other, because this is a discussion. Yeah, perfect. Is there enough chairs? We need one more chair, please. Musical chairs, this is how we do it. Thank you, Eddie. Appreciate you. Wonderful gentleman. Eddie, thank you. Perfect. Awesome. So with this really is, and we were talking a little bit at our table before, this is not my discussion. Yes, I am the older person sitting up here, but this is your discussion. And so whenever we start with a discussion, we want to make sure, one, there's consent, and two, we also want to make sure there's shared agreement. So to make sure that you all know what rules are we following while we're talking to each other. So I want to ask a few questions and jump in if anything comes to mind. And if you don't want to answer, you do not have to, right? So when the first time you speak, if you could just say your name, so since I named all your names in a row, they know who you are. So the first question I have is, what does a safe and open space mean to you, especially talking about this online safety discussion that we're talking about today?
Really, anything goes. I don't mind. I want to hear what all these people have to say, so I don't really mind. Whatever. Just keep it formal. Well, not formal, but like nice. Kind of respectful, yes. How about that?
Thank you, Eddie.
I'm Katie. I was going to say leaving room for discussion and lack of interruption, just kind of like Eddie was saying, being respectful of what everyone has to say.
Yeah, I'm not. Oh.
We'll have an expert help.
Thank you. I'm Noelle, and kind of similar, just that we respect what everyone else is saying and give space for everyone to answer and really listen to each other.
I'm Sada, and I don't really have anything else to add.
That's okay.
I agree with everyone.
That's great. Thank you, Sarah.
I'm Melanie, and a place that I feel like safe is being around people that I feel won't judge me for the things that I will say and respect me and just show kindness and open-mindedness.
Absolutely. Wonderful.
My name is Margarita, and definitely respect the time or respect everybody's answers. Being safe to me is being around people that care.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you all for contributing. If there is a disagreement, what can we agree to do if someone doesn't like what someone else said up here? What's a couple of things that we could do together as a group?
I can add, I was going to say, kind of just agree to disagree. I think there's respect for everyone's different points of view, and we can learn from each other even if we don't agree with what someone's saying.
Beautiful. I think Sada had her hand up.
Yeah, just share your own opinion without being disrespectful to the other person. And it's okay to have different opinions.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So how does this feel? Does it feel good? And you guys feel like we can get started? Feel like we have our safe space? Awesome. So the first question I have, and again, anyone can pass if you don't feel like it, and if you need the microphone, we have 3, so just let us know that you'd like to speak. First, I want to ask, because it matters, what online platforms do you use the most? So what social media or what kind of ways do you engage in the internet? And what features do you find beneficial or concerning? And you can kind of break those up, but we'll just start with what online platforms do you use? And I see Margarita's hand.
So in the past, I've had Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. Twitter was too dangerous for me. I heard a lot about Twitter, so I stayed away from Twitter, definitely. But those were the main 3. One of the features that I actually like, and I was just talking about it, was I noticed that since there's so many people commenting ugly things on the internet, that as soon as you comment a negative word, let's say ugly for example, as soon as you commented that word and you send it out for everybody in the world to see, Instagram will warn you, I believe, or sometimes they might even stop it. They'll be like, this word is, I don't really remember what they say, but it's like this word is too graphic or something. We cannot post it due to our guidelines. That's a good feature. But I wish, the social media could really like push on that, because there's a lot of ugly words, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of ugly words, so definitely that's a benefit, but it's also like I want it to get pushed more.
Thank you, Margarita. What platforms do you use, Melanie?
Some platforms that I use are Instagram and Snapchat. I really love Instagram because it allows you to restrict people from seeing your stories, and it allows you to block, hide your like comments, hide your comments so that way no one comments at all. And I just think that it's very buildable to what you want personally and how you feel about social media and the internet. So I really enjoyed those features. I use Instagram and TikTok mostly. I'm a singer, and so I use Instagram to promote that almost as a business for me. So I'm using that to promote myself, so I have a public account. And so one feature that I really appreciate is having a close friends feature on Instagram. It's a feature where if you post a story or a post that goes onto your feed, you can just post it to a certain group of people that you consider your close friends. And for me, where I have a public account with lots of people following me that I don't necessarily know personally, it's really nice to have a feature where I can just post for the people that I see at school or at church and things like that.
I have something kind of similar to add. I use YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and on YouTube you can post videos publicly, privately, or unlisted, meaning only the person with the link can view the video, and that can be helpful for just keeping your memories just for you or the people you want to see, and it doesn't have to be totally public for everyone.
Awesome. And I will join in. I use Facebook. I know, that's for the elder people. Instagram and TikTok. And partly because I worked with youth for so long, to me, that's how I know what's going on in the world and the words that they're using and the things that they're talking about and the dances that they're doing. But it was beneficial for me to kind of keep up and know what was happening in the real world for the most part, except my For You page turned to all cooking and crafting, but that's what happens, right?
My main platform that I used was Instagram, but I'm currently in the process of trying to stop using it. But the main thing I used it for was mainly messaging my friends. And one feature I really like about Instagram is that you can just make your whole account private, so you only let in the people you want to let in. And I think that's great. That's great for just, being wary of who you let follow you and stuff, and just making a safe environment for yourself.
You all did a wonderful job talking about the benefits. I would love to go back and just make sure we also talk about the concerns. What concerns you about being on these platforms?
I'll go ahead. Kind of the digital footprint that we always hear about, like once something's out there, even if it's private, it's out there for good, so we have to be really careful about what we're posting and double check things, because the digital footprint is a really real thing.
Saw Margarita had her hand up.
I would say one of the most concerning parts about social media in general is it's like they know. Like as soon as you see something and you like it or you stare at it too long, it's like it already knows how to like filter all that. So let's say I was looking at videos of cooking. As soon as I click on a video of cooking, whether I liked it or I looked at it too long, it's gonna start showing me stuff about cooking. So imagine when you look at something that's not appropriate. What else is coming that way? More appropriate stuff. Inappropriate stuff, my bad. More inappropriate stuff. And that's the scary part, because how do you know so fast, you know? Like, how does it know so fast to make sure it's perfect for you, to know what your likings are?
Anyone else?
Oh, so I think platforms such as TikTok and Instagram, those are more popular among the kids. To me, I feel like they're designed to keep you hooked for long periods of time. Like Instagram like a year ago maybe, introduced this feature called Reels, which is basically just TikTok. And I never had TikTok, so I never had that problem of what you would call doom scrolling. Yeah, you're just going for hours and hours, and it's like, I didn't have TikTok, but I had Instagram, so I was on my phone for maybe like an hour just straight on Instagram when I could have been doing something else. So I think a big part of it is it's taking up a lot of your time, and most of that time that's being used on Instagram, it's meaningless.
Also, I'd like to add to that sometimes you get so absorbed into what you see on social media that you kind of lose sight of what's actually going on in real life. Like, I see a lot of people taking sides on people that they don't even know because they like them or they like what they see, and because they share an opinion, and you're kind of like, oh, I follow this person, I'm gonna fight for this person. And then people kind of get a little bit too absorbed, I would say. And it also happens with the information that they share. Sometimes they share information that isn't even true, but we don't kind of get out of it and look around.
That's a very important point, Sada.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of say on the lines of that, like, it's really easy for people to screenshot things that you post. You were kind of talking about digital footprint a little bit. And it's so easy for things to be misinterpreted, and for a kid to post something that didn't have a certain intent, someone screenshot it, sent it to something else, and it has a completely different meaning. And so that's one thing that I think is a really hard thing, because someone might not have the intent of something, but it can be interpreted a different way.
Yeah, and especially like Snapchat, where things disappear. So you think like, oh, it's just gonna disappear, it's no big deal, or it'll tell me if they screenshot it, but that doesn't stop the screenshot from existing and it being out in the world, right? And then we have, and what I hear you guys all saying is that these programs are designed to capture your attention, right? That is their goal, is to kind of capture your attention, to help, like to bring you in and to keep you focused on that app, which sometimes can take you away from the real world, or sometimes you get wrapped up in things that you're like, I really don't even care if the cat is orange or black, but I'm gonna argue on the internet because everyone else is doing it, right? Like, those are the things we're kind of seeing, and these apps they're building in features to make it look like they care. Like on TikTok, it's like, you've been scrolling for a long time, stop it, right? And these kind of things are built in, but are they really stopping people from doom scrolling? Not usually, right? And to your point, every app is just kind of reiterating themselves to capture more of your attention at every turn. So, very valid points. One of the things that I would love to turn to and talk about is your privacy settings and how you set them and how you determine what they are. And just to give a little story or antidote for those of you who are not on TikTok with us young people, but there's this TikTok creator called Khan. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her work, but people post on her page and say, you'll never find out who I am. And literally in 39 seconds during her video, she's able to find your name, your full name, your birth date. And these are people who are like, my account's private, everything. And she cracks the code. She does it magically. The problem is she shares how she does it. So now everyone knows how she does it. And so it's out there for anyone to figure out how to go and find your full name and birthday when you think everything is private. And she does it in such unique ways. Like she looks at who liked your post, then she looks at their post, and they post a picture at your birthday party, boom, she's got your birthday, right? It's fascinating and terrifying, right? So, but these are people who are out there, and she's doing it because she's a creator and she's making money on the app, and it's exciting and people love it and it's fun, and they're like, you can't find me. And she cracks them every time. So, but she's also teaching maybe people with the worst intentions to also do that. How do you guys feel about that, and how do you set your online privacy settings? How do you even know what is set on your privacy settings on these apps?
Yeah, that story is definitely like creeper stuff out there. But I guess for me, my privacy, I said earlier that I have it on private, so I choose who gets to see what I post and just who gets to communicate with me. And yeah, that's how I do it. That's how I've always done it. Well, not always, but how I think it should be for everyone.
For somebody like me that lived a very dangerous lifestyle a couple years ago, as a former victim of sex trafficking, one of the scariest things that happened to me a couple years ago was that I had to testify against my pimp. And I don't know who he knew. You know, he could be sending people after me. So as soon as that happened, I deleted most of my social media. The only thing I do have is Instagram and TikTok, but this is how I personally keep it very private, is I make sure I have no profile picture, because that does catches people's attention. So I make sure I have no profile picture. I only follow close friends and family. I barely post anything, and when I do post, I make sure that there is no address, there's no numbers, like an easy place to really, like, if people were to find me, they're gonna be like, okay, she was at right here, and they look up the address and bam, they know where I'm at, because it's that easy, right? So I make sure, I barely post anything. I make sure to have no addresses or no, names. I obviously have my account on private. I block people as soon as I see somebody that requests to follow me that I don't even know. And I don't know how you found my name because my username is not even my name. I make it random. It's a very random username. So you have no reason to follow me, right? So I go immediately to blocking. And make sure, and this is an important part, because make sure that when you create an account, any type of social media account, when you put in your phone number or you put in your name or your address, that is what's going to attract the people. If you put in your phone number, it's going to show you at the, like on Instagram, it'll show you people that you may know. And it's going to pop up people, and you're wondering, like, how do you think I know these people? It's because of your phone number. Your phone numbers, they get linked to other phone numbers, and like, the social media is smart, right? So I definitely, when I create an account, I don't use none of my personal information, no phone numbers. I just get a WhatsApp number, which is not my real number, so I just use that. I use a email that I just created. I don't use my personal email, stuff like that, because that's what makes people like get to know like one another and who's around. And my friend is gonna start requesting another person's friend. It's crazy. I just make sure I don't use none of my personal information on my accounts when I create one.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think definitely privacy settings are really important. I have a little bit more of a public profile as a content creator, and so when it comes to that kind of stuff, I think attention to detail is super important. For example, not posting anything about details of the outside of your home, and everything's on Zillow, Realtor.com. People can find addresses really easily. And I remember a story of, I think it was in another country, someone was able to find a woman's location because of the reflection in her eye. And so being super careful about your location settings is important, and paying close attention to details like that,
Yeah.
scary as it is.
There's another creator that geolocates people when they post something and they're like, find me in this parking lot. And in all of the world, he's able to narrow down using like Google imaging where they are exactly. So you're absolutely right. Just posting in front of your house, you're on your front lawn, you think it's super innocent, no big deal, but they could find out exactly where you live just by following these creators who teach them how to do it because they're just having fun. And it's not always fun for everyone. So. And how many of you guys, and I want you to be honest, maybe show of hands, you've seen those updates when you log into that and it's like, update to our privacy settings. How many of you click on them and read the whole thing? It's okay, it's true. How many of you do it? Right. How many of you read the warranty when you get a new appliance? Right. This is our human nature. We have one person who does that, and that's amazing. But most of us don't. And so if we don't see what's changing, if we don't know what's happening, we don't even know what we're agreeing to, but how many of you click that agree button? See, this is everyone, and you're not alone. This is almost everyone. So these are just things to be mindful of. It might be worth scanning it. It might be worth noticing it. It might be worth looking back at your settings and just check if something flipped or something changed, or if there's more features that you can use. So that's just another way of thinking about the problem as well. All right, anyone else have anything else on this one before we move to the next question? Okay. Can you share any experiences where you may have felt safe online? Unsafe, sorry. Can you share where you may have felt unsafe?
Early on when I had Instagram, there was this one instance where this guy, I didn't even know him. He just like tagged me in a story and said, watch your back. And I was like, I don't know you, what are you talking about? So then I blocked him, and that's really the only instance. It's very tame compared to what other people probably go through, but it was still weird. It was concerning. It just, I don't know, like random people can just make you, terrified, it's just like for no reason.
Were you gonna go? Okay. Since I have a public account, my mom helps me run it because I'm in high school and she thinks that that's a good decision, and I completely agree with that. So a lot of stuff that we do is on Instagram, there's like a DM feature that they can go to your primary DMs, which is like your close friends or people that you don't necessarily know. And so there have been times where I get DMs from random people I don't know that are a little bit something that, I don't know, just something I probably want to block. And so we use the block feature or just stuff like that. My mom has really helped me filter those kind of things. And so I think it's really helpful to have another person helping you with that. Especially me, because I'm young, I might not always know what to look out for. And even just repetitiveness. Sometimes there have been people who DM me who, it's nothing inappropriate, but it's just very repetitive, and it's very like, hey, like, respond, who are you? I want to talk to you. And when it gets to that point, I'll usually block them, restrict their comments, and things like that, yeah.
A few years ago, I didn't have a phone yet because, sorry, I've got a cough. I didn't have a phone yet, so I used my mother's phone to communicate with the classroom and stuff. But they did make us at school, we were around 11, 12 years old. They did make us open an Instagram account. I don't know why. But somehow, some strangers started contacting me through my mom. They got my contact information from I don't know where, saying that this man was a friend of mine, a girl that was my age, and started contacting me. It was really creepy. And then started calling. It felt really unsafe. My parents dealt with it and kind of threatened to call the police and stuff. But I don't think children should have social media. Like, why would they? They can find entertainment in the outside world, right? But it's also really unsafe. People can get all your information and you never know how.
I have one that's a little more lighthearted, and it's just, I feel like we all can relate. When you drive past a restaurant or you're talking about a business or something with a friend, and then you're on social media and an ad pops up for that exact thing, it's like, whoa, is someone watching me? Is someone listening to me? And it really is, because if you have your location settings on, if you drive past, I know it's Starbucks for sure, you'll get a notification from the app when you drive past a Starbucks, and it's just like, whoa, this really knows. It knows what we're thinking,
Right.
quote unquote, but those moments are always a little scary.
Yeah, they've basically taken our convenience, right, for
Right.
granted and gone beyond. Like, do you want coffee? But then it turns into other things, and when people can find your location, as someone else was saying, right, like Snapchat has the location feature and different things, and you forget to turn it off, or you're with your friends and you don't know that they keep it on all the time. That can be a challenge, and that's another thing. Like, if you all have your profiles locked down, which is wonderful, but if you have a friend that has a public profile and you like their pictures, someone now has access to find you. Like, that's just the reality of how quickly and how devastating it can go when you're doing the right things, but people in your circle may not be. And so that's another way that can just be challenging. Thank you all for sharing. I know that's not always easy to share things that made you feel unsafe or how things happen in lighthearted ones, but Starbucks is kind of creepy. I mean, we love it, but. So then the next question I have is, when do you know it's important to tell someone? How do you know, like your mom's on your account, that's great, but like how do you know when to tell someone that something unsafe is happening?
I have a story to share of when I was in middle school. I was like 11 or 12, and I feel like in this moment that it happened to me, I should have told an adult, and I didn't. And it was just how I was raised, and I didn't have the opportunity to speak to a trusted adult. But I was on Snapchat, and someone random added me, and they started texting me and telling me personal information about where I went to school, how old I was, where I lived, and then they started sending me inappropriate images. In that moment, I did block them, but I feel like that's a moment where you should tell a trusted adult or tell anyone, because it is honestly very scary when at that age, knowing that they know where you live or they know where you go to school, and I did feel very unsafe for a while after that.
Thank you for sharing, Melanie, and I'm sure that was very scary, and to not have someone to confide in, to tell, is tough. When you look back now, because I know sometimes we can feel like there's no one, but when you look back now, was there an adult that you maybe could have talked to, like a teacher or someone else who maybe wasn't in your personal circle? Or was it really just curious because there's teachers in the room, there's different folks in the room that maybe could learn?
Not for me personally. I don't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That was in my lifetime. I didn't have a trusted adult. But as I got into high school, I got to build bonds with teachers, which I really appreciated. But
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that later you were able to find someone, and that may be something that we need to think about, right? Like, is there a text line or is there a safety line where kids who don't feel like they have someone to tell, they do have it? And so that may be something we need to get into the hands of all young people to make sure that they always have someone, even if it's not someone they know personally. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? How do you know when it's time to tell someone?
Maybe almost a gut instinct, like you just get that feeling this doesn't seem right, and you kind of know you need to take action, whether it's blocking that person, talking to someone else. Maybe it's a sign to switch up your privacy settings and be more careful about who has eyes on what you're posting.
I know sometimes there's also fear, like if I tell my, parent, trusted adult, someone that these things are happening, they're going to take it away, right? I'm not going to have access to it, or there may be that they're going to think I created it or I brought it on myself. So there's a lot of different reasons why people might not tell. So how can us adults do better? How can the people in this room do better so that someone would feel like they could talk to them, they could trust them? What would you have needed in that space when you were younger, or what do you need now?
for minors, so I believe like 17 and down, if they have a platform, whether it's your little brother, sister, cousin, niece, nephew, whatever it is, if you know that they have any type of social media, definitely monitor it. You know, just check it real quick. You know, just check the comments, check who liked it, check who they are following. Just check it real quick. So definitely monitor, and when they get to an older age, definitely educate them on stuff like that, and make sure that you voice that you are somebody that you can go, if something happens to them, that they can go up to you and be like, look, this guy, I don't know, he keeps texting me. I know you told me a long time ago, if something like that were to happen, let you know. And then you can take care of it from there. Because it's scary, and like what Shantina said, we're not comfortable, you know, especially like the kids, like they don't want their phones taken away, they don't want their social media taken away, they don't, you know? It's just a little incident that happened to them. And of course it's big to us, but we're not gonna see eye to eye. So definitely educate them when they get a little bit older about the safety online.
Thank you, Natalie.
Also, I think it's important to, sorry, the word's kind of, I'll start with an example. I've heard many friends or young people say that they don't really want to talk to their parents, for example, because they say they won't listen, because kind of just they kind of just say this is wrong, this is right, don't do this, and they feel a little bit pressured and that like they can't open up because they won't listen. So maybe just make it in a way that they know that you will listen, that you are trustworthy, and also include yourself. You know, if they like some shows, talk about them, or for example, depends on everyone.
Yeah, kind of on that same topic, like get in their world with them. Make sure you know the ins and outs of different platforms and the dangers of those platforms. Because if you're just oblivious, oh, something happened, and I mean, the natural reaction would be to take away the account, do whatever you can to make that child in your life feel safe and remove that danger. But there's a lot more action that you can take if you know how the platforms work and the dangers of them.
So what I hear you saying is, don't be like, oh, I don't understand TikTok, so I'm not going to get on.
Like, understand
Get
it.
on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of just similar things. I think it's really important for parents to understand where their kids are coming from, and for adults to understand where we're coming from as well. And from that place, then educate us, because I think it's really hard when a young person is so connected to this social media app and then someone says take it away, and they don't understand that the intent of that is for their benefit. And so I think, because our world today is so on social media, and there's teams at my school that they send their notifications, oh, practice today is at this place, through Instagram and through social media apps. So a parent just taking away social media can be really hard on a kid. So I think it's really important for parents and kids to make compromises and understand where each is coming from, and for kids to understand that their parents are just trying to help them create a safe space.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I know it can just be hard for parents to even try, because most parents grew up, it's like they're growing up in two different realities now. It's like they grew up without it, and now they're spending half their life with it. And, you know, I think it is important that, like, parents do also need to learn about, like, the dangers of it, and so then they can tell their kids that. So then maybe those kids will listen to those parents, and not just some random people who say like, oh no, don't do this. Like, you're going to listen to your parents probably more than that. And I know it's scary, I mean, telling your parents about all those issues, and I mean, it sucks, but, you know, they just want what's best for you.
Thank you. And I mean, I hear you guys saying a lot of things. It really is about relationship, right? So a relationship with your child, with your parent, is really what's going to open the door for it to be possible for them to maybe tell you when they're feeling unsafe. But And I think there's many people in this world who maybe don't have a parent who can be that person. And so, how would you guys feel if it was another trusted adult, a teacher or someone in your life? Because teachers generally have the second most time with a young person, but others outside of that relationship, well, how would you advise for them to open that? Because it's not as personal, right? It's not as intimate as a parent relationship. How could they open that conversation?
For me personally, for someone that didn't have a trusted adult in the home, I think that I would have loved if a teacher would have just asked me how I was doing about my day to open up that conversation and just build a bond within, that does involve safety, but also they cared about how I was, and I wish I had that opportunity.
I have one, maybe two more questions. I'll try to keep it short. But we're all adults in this room, so we don't understand. You guys are closest to it. And we were talking earlier at the table how we're not the ones to solve this. You are. So what would be your solution? What would you create? What would you do differently? What would you build? What would you make? What would you change about social media or online platforms to be safe for the kids who are coming after you?
I feel like a big thing that could help is probably putting age restrictions on social media. It's like, you have to be a certain age. And me personally, I think, children should not have social media. I completely agree with that. But I think honestly, the brain doesn't stop developing until you're 30 or something. So honestly, 25, my bad, sorry. I'm not smart intellectually, but definitely it's when you get to some point where it's you're going to know what and what you should not do but definitely age restrictions, but still kids are going to bypass that. I've probably done it with video games, stuff like that, just saying, you just lie. And I don't know, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about other ways we could stop it, to make sure there are strict restrictions to make sure that they don't have access to that until they're ready.
Yeah, I think that just more restrictions within the app would be really cool to see, because there's so many easy ways to bypass a restriction on TikTok. There's a hashtag you can do. It's TikTok I'm 18, that bypasses some kind of inappropriate content or inappropriate clothing that someone is wearing, and they can tag that, and it is it bypasses that algorithm that says, oh, it's okay because they're 18, and young people can use that. I've seen little girls wear very skimpy clothes and say, TikTok I'm 18, and it's fine on the app. And so I don't think those kinds of things should be in place. I think there should just be more restrictions in that area. Yeah.
A restriction I think that should be placed in social media is the location services. I think that should be turned off. And if you do I understand why it's in place, so you can see where the closest food is, or amusement parks or things like that. I feel you should be able to input oh, I'm in Anaheim, find me something in Anaheim. And they should not ask for your location at all.
I was actually having a conversation with Mr. Marsh a couple weeks ago, and he said something about how, as unfortunate as it is, this stuff isn't going to go away. Bad people are bad people, and I think we can, if we know better and educate ourselves, we can do better for the next generation. And it's so important that we use our knowledge, and we do eventually when we have kids and have those children in our lives that are growing up and getting access to social media, that we use those restrictions and teach them what's right and what's wrong and what to look out for.
I also think that age restrictions and other restrictions are very important, but I think most people would just, because it asks you if you want to apply those restrictions, so I think a lot of people would just ignore them, even children. So I think it's important for us to also be conscious about what we post. Obviously, we could ask others not to post inappropriate things, but people will be, they'll find a way. If they don't do it somewhere, they'll do it somewhere else. But something that we ourselves could do, especially for the younger generations, would be just thinking and minding what we post, what we say, because that does influence others, and others will see it, children will see it, and it's really not that hard. So
I have a couple of things to add. I think one way, and not that they would, but I really feel like the social media companies that run these, they, I believe, can probably, if you can tell when an account is run by a child or something, and I think they absolutely should take them down and block those accounts. Also, I don't know how you would, but I think just making it harder to get social media would also work. Like, make the process lengthier, like have more information on what you're getting yourself into. Like, I created my Instagram account in like 2 minutes with my email. It's so easy for anyone to do nowadays, and I think if you made it harder, like less children would do it because like, oh, this is boring, So I think those are ways.
Yeah, I was kind of going to add on to what you were saying. I think it's really important to educate kids on it, because it's so interesting to me how kids in this generation are like so much more on social media. There's like 5th graders and 6th graders that have TikToks and Instagrams, and I'm like, that's crazy. Oh yeah, kids are really young. And so to me, I was like, when I was in 6th grade, I was probably still playing with Barbies and like in my room with my American Girl dolls, and so I think it's really important because they just go into it innocently and see it as, oh, this is a fun place to post with my friends, and they don't see the dangers. And so I was talking to my mom, and we're like, it'd be so cool if there was an opportunity for these kids to hear about it, maybe at school, maybe speakers their age, or not necessarily their age, but a little bit older, but still young, telling them their own experiences. This is a real thing, and telling them the dangers and what social media can actually do.
Noelle, perfect segue. You set me up for my last question perfectly. I'm going to guess that you guys would agree that putting a book in front of a young person and helping them educate on social media is probably not the answer, right? What about a presentation, a PowerPoint filled with cool graphics? Is that going to help them learn about the dangers of social media? What would be the way to help them actually learn about the dangers of social media? You kind of started it, but say more.
Yeah, like you were saying, presentations and books, those aren't going to catch their eye. I think maybe like videos of like their past experience with it, because I know those always hit me. Like when I was in middle school, I would watch like anti-bullying videos, and like some of them were deep. And I think if you just share the experiences when they're old enough to hear about it, I mean, I think you can modify it to where it's like it can fit any age. Right? But I mean, older you get, the more, say like, this is the true danger of social media. And I think using a video would be great. And like, you can make it like 10 seconds long, because I know that's what their brains are accustomed to with this stuff.
Make a reel.
Make a reel. Yes, make a reel. That's ironic, but it would get it across, I think.
Any other ideas?
This one might be a little bit ironic too, and she kind of covered it, but I think leading by example is important. I feel like we emulate so much of what we see in the real world when we're young, and the same goes for social media. So being careful of what we're posting, just like we've been saying the whole time, I mean, it's important in leading by example to maybe show instead of tell.
I know I kind of already said this, but I think would be so beneficial to hear from people around my age, their experience. I think that just hearing about a concept is different than hearing about how it actually affected someone. And so if I hear someone who's in college or something, I'm in high school, and who's in college and says, when I was in high school, this happened to me and these are the dangers, I think that would be so much more effective than my mom coming and saying, well, like these are the dangers of social media. Even though both have the same intent, I think that first one would be very effective.
I don't know. Okay, you're absolutely right. And the research says it, right? That peer-to-peer is really the way that when people see someone they can relate to, someone that they feel understands them in a different way, they are more likely to listen. So you guys are all along that same place. Sada, did you have something to add?
They got kind of covered, so.
All right. Margarita, Melanie, anything you would add on this?
I will say, it's just kind of adding onto what's already been said, but people generally don't really care about problems that don't have anything to do with them. So I really think it's important to include everyone and to talk to each other. Like, hey, this is a real thing. This can really happen.
We have 2 content creators on this stage, so maybe they'll make a video about what they talked about today and learned and put it out there for others. That's one way. But really what you guys did today, having this discussion, having others hear from you, learn from you, this is part of the solution. So you are a part of the solution, every single one of you, with your own experiences and what you contribute and what you shared with us. It helps us all learn and get better to do better. No more, do more. Know better, do better, right? So that's what we're here. So with one final thing, is there anything we didn't cover, anything you want folks out here to know that you think is really important about this topic?
I might say watching out for the people around you and watching out for your friends. I think it's really important for me if I see my friend post something that I think could put them in danger or something that they, from my perspective, wouldn't be a good image of them on social media, I'm going to want to tell them right away. And I'm going to want to say, hey, I don't think you should have posted that. And I think it's so important for us to watch out for each other because, especially as a young girl, if I see my friend post something, I'm going to tell her. I'm going to say, I think you need to take that down because people might see that in different ways. And so I think it's really important for us to watch out for each other.
This is kind of on the same note. I'm in a sorority at the University of Colorado, and we have something called BIBS. It's Bring It Back, Sister.
Oh.
It's silly, but if you see someone who's posting something maybe with like substances, for example, just things that really should not be on social media and reflect poorly on your sister, they should take it down. So maybe that'll be a good reminder.
Bring it back, sister.
Yes.
Let's all say that.
I think this can apply to people, because I have 2 younger siblings who aren't even in like high school yet. They're very young, and I think one thing you should do is just warn them, you know, before they're even on it, you know. So just, even if you're like the sibling or something, like you can sit them down, and they might even listen to you compared to the parents, you know. It's like you're their friend. You're not like the parental figure. What you're saying is, you know, not to like be mean, but like, not saying that parents are mean for that, but they won't look at it as like mean or rude. They look at it as actual advice. So I know if you're younger and stuff, I know it's a lot of adults here, but even if you have, yeah.
Or if you have kids and they have younger siblings, you can talk to your older kid and see if they're willing to share it, right? But what I hear you all saying is that if your generation, right, and those in your age range are able to talk to others and share with others about what they've experienced, what they've seen, but also how to be safe and what they can do, that's probably the best way that we can really make a difference. Thank you all. Thank you, Margarita. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Sada. Thank you, Noelle. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate your time. You're all amazing and wonderful. And I'm going to have you exit the stage, and I'm going to talk with a boring PowerPoint for a little while, but I'm sure it'll be exciting to all of you out there.